Tonight, another wild ride on Wall Street.
It was a client who just said, I'm really nervous, I'm getting ready to jump.
It's now 8 straight losses, credits frozen, and world leaders look for answers. I'm Maggie Rodriguez. Also tonight, allegations of voter fraud. Workers for a big voter registration group tell CBS News they were signing up the dead. Negative political ads. What makes them effective? We'll look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Steve Hartman with Friday Night Light.
So small, the water jugs can almost tackle them.
Whoa, a minute.
Tonight's Assignment America.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. Katie's on assignment. The end of this week could not come soon enough. It was a week for the strong, Wall Street's worst week ever. The day began with another huge sell-off, the Dow plunging 700 points, but it soon recovered all of it and then bounced up and down the rest of the day before finishing, you guessed it, down again, down 128 points. That brings the loss for the week to more than 1,800 points, or more than 18%. Both all-time records. Anthony Mason is our business correspondent. And Anthony, there's breaking news tonight?
Yeah, this story is still moving, Maggie. Tonight, Secretary Paulson has announced an extraordinary plan to take an ownership stake in major American banks in an expanding effort to restore confidence and unlock the credit markets. This move came after the Dow endured its 8th straight losing day. Call it Red October.
It's the only business in the world that when they have a fire sale, nobody comes.
In the 8 trading sessions this month, the Dow and the S&P have both fallen 22%, a kind of slow motion crash.
The fear has gotten to irrational proportions. We're now assuming, I think, that when this is over, none of us are going to be living in houses anymore.
As this week-long wipeout ended, Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson and Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke began a series of meetings with the finance ministers of the G7, the leading industrialized nations. Late today, Secretary Paulson said the U.S. government was now ready to move ahead with a plan to buy stock and take ownership stakes in major U.S. banks.
As we develop plans to purchase equity, as in the approach we are taking to broad mortgage asset purchases, we are working to develop a standardized program that is open to a broad array of financial institutions.
When the government steps in and says, we'll make good on these loans if the bank cannot, that greatly increases investor confidence that they will get repaid.
Does there need to be a coordinated global response here?
I think there does, because we are in a coordinated global recession at this point.
Economist Lakshman Achuthan. And if we don't get one?
If you don't get one, you're taking a very bad recession, a global recession, and you're going to make it much more severe.
President Bush again tried to reassure the nation today, just as FDR repeatedly did in his fireside radio chats during the Great Depression.
It is the right plan. It will take time to have its full impact.
In other words, we are moving as fast as the mechanics of the situation will allow us.
We're in this together, and we'll come through this together.
Together, we cannot fail.
As nervous investors have been pulling billions out of the markets, one business has been profiting. Sales of home safes are up 75%, according to America's biggest safe maker. Meanwhile, some traders are hoping that the steep sell-off late yesterday and early today, 1,000 points in just a couple of hours, may have finally signaled a bottom. And Maggie, this report that the Treasury Secretary is looking to take ownership stakes in banks, and we now have a statement from the G7 that says they are going to take decisive action and use all available tools to support the financial system. I think the markets are going to look at these as hopeful signs.
Let's hope so. Anthony Mason, thank you. Clearly, European and Asian markets are hoping for those hopeful signs, which they have yet to see, as you'll see in tonight's CBS News Financial Notebook. In Asia, they're calling it Black Friday, and European markets posted their worst losses in years. We have 2 reports, beginning with Richard Roth in London.
With recession fears gripping Europe now, it was another day of mayhem on the markets. London stocks were down 8.9%. They've lost more than a fifth of their value just this week. France and Germany weren't far behind. For policymakers, said a broker here, it's time for the kitchen sink, as in governments now need to throw absolutely everything they have at this problem. Richard Roth, CBS News, London.
I'm Barry Peterson in Tokyo. It didn't matter that Asian economies are in good shape. The meltdown was relentless. From Hong Kong to Sydney, hardest hit Tokyo, down 9.6%, its worst fall in 2 decades. In just a week, Tokyo has lost almost a quarter of its value. Asia depends on exports, and it is hurting. Toyota stock off 40% as U.S. sales tumble. Without good news from Wall Street, and that means a turnaround, Asian investors will remain as depressed as their stocks.
What's keeping stocks down is the big freeze in the credit markets. Banks are afraid to lend money to each other, to you, and to businesses that need cash to operate because they're afraid they won't get paid back. Nancy Cordes explains.
The stock market meltdown may have everyone transfixed, but experts say that's just a sideshow compared to the real crisis.
We're seeing a freezing of the credit market.
Credit markets have to start functioning again.
But just what are the credit markets? Unlike stock markets, they aren't tied to trading floors. Instead, credit markets are driven by the world's largest banks. They borrow billions from each other, then turn around and loan it to smaller institutions and industry. But in the past month, they've nearly doubled the interest rate they charge each other. Spooked as a parade of once solid business partners go under, get bought, or beg for rescue.
Right now, hoarding cash is the game that's being played. Cash is king, and I'm not going to give up my cash and give it to you and find out that your coins or your stamp collection is valueless and you'll never pay me back.
Even the government's promise to buy $700 billion in bad assets hasn't greased the wheels.
The problem we have is that the fear is rising faster than the policy responses are keeping up.
The administration's new plan to buy up stocks in big banks follows a similar move by Great Britain 2 days ago.
This is not a time for conventional thinking.
But market expert Michael Greenberger says that approach has its own risks.
You might just go and buy stock at a certain price, only to find that the markets get worse and the capital infusion doesn't work, and the value of the stock collapses, and the American taxpayer is left holding the bag.
That's why some refer to it as the nuclear option. But faced with the prospect of a severe recession, the Federal Reserve and the White House tonight concluded it's one of the only options left to unfreeze the credit markets and halt the stock market slide. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Washington.
I'm Michelle Miller in New York.
It's like rearranging chairs on the Titanic.
30 years on the street, and Mike Sawyer doesn't know what to think.
12 more days like this, the stock market will be at zero.
He's only half joking. Sawyer hears the fear in the voices of his investors.
He was a client who just said, I'm really nervous, I'm getting ready to jump, I need to talk to you just to make sure you kind of can talk me off the ledge.
That's a challenge.
Down 700.
Even at one of America's most prestigious firms. Remember that old commercial?
They make money the old-fashioned way. They earn it.
Today, it's less about money-making than old-fashioned hand-holding.
We need to be the calm one. We need to be the stable ones. We talk a lot about that.
Investors everywhere are on edge.
Most people are frightened out of their wits.
Are you part analyst, part therapist?
That's a great way to put it.
So when the closing bell sounded, the therapist still had work to do. Michelle Miller, CBS News, New York.
In the presidential race today, John McCain continued to hammer Barack Obama with a new TV ad focusing on his association with a 1960s radical. Here's tonight's CBS News Campaign 08 notebook.
When convenient, he worked with terrorist Bill Ayers. When discovered, he lied.
Bill Ayers founded the terrorist group known as the Weather Underground. Years later, Obama worked with him in 2 nonprofit organizations, but insists they were never close, and that the McCain camp is trying to, in Obama's words, score cheap political points by exaggerating his ties to Ayers.
Senator McCain's campaign actually said, and I quote, "If we keep talking about the economy, we're going to lose." So in the last couple of days, we've seen a barrage of nasty insinuations and attacks.
On the campaign trail, Senator Obama today proposed extending a tax break to small businesses. Senator McCain called for suspending the requirement that you begin liquidating your retirement account when you turn 70 and a half. That rule is forcing many retirees to sell stock in the middle of this downturn. Bob Schieffer is our chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation. Bob, on the campaign trail today, John McCain took a question from a man who told him that he's afraid of an Obama presidency. I'd like you and our viewers to hear how John McCain responded.
I want to be president of the United States, and obviously I do not want Senator Obama to be. But I have to tell you, he is a decent person and a person that you do not have to be scared as president of the United States. Now, look, if I didn't think I wouldn't be one heck of a lot better president, I wouldn't be running, okay?
Bob, is that John McCain drawing the line after all the attacks he made on Senator Obama this week?
Well, I think you have to say that now even John McCain may have concluded that this nastiness that has gripped this campaign for the last week or so, that it has to stop. What McCain and his running mate Sarah Palin have been trying to do ever since this economic crisis landed on all of us is to change the subject, because once this economic news turned bad, Barack Obama started going up in the polls. McCain and his running mate have been trying to make this a referendum about Obama and his character instead of a referendum on the financial situation. The trouble is it does not seem to be working, Maggie. John McCain didn't have much of a week this week, a better week than the stock market probably, but not a very good week.
That's not saying much, Bob. It's Friday, so I have to ask, who are your guests on Face the Nation this week?
Well, we've got a big group. We've got, among others, the governor of Colorado, Bill Ritter. That's one of the big swing states. And then John McCain's main man in the Senate, Republican Lindsey Graham. He's not from a swing state, but he can see one from his house.
Well, that counts, I think. Thank you, Bob. Coming up next here on the CBS Evening News, signing up the dead. CBS investigates allegations of fraud by one of the biggest voter registration groups in the country. The outcome of the presidential election could depend on voter registration, and in 4 battleground states, the Democrats have a big edge. Since 2004, they've added nearly 700,000 voters to the rolls, while the Republicans have lost 189,000. Now a group that focuses on registering minority voters is under investigation for possible voter fraud. Here's CBS Chief Investigative Correspondent Armin Katayan.
Known as Acorn, it runs one of the largest community voter registration drives in the nation, signing up more than 1.3 million mostly minority and low-income people this year alone. But now top Republicans are calling for a full-scale investigation of their operation, and John McCain is calling them out.
There are serious allegations of voter fraud.
This is just a disaster.
Joseph Borges, the registrar of voters in Bridgeport, Connecticut, says his office has been overwhelmed by bogus forms filled out with thousands of fake and duplicate names. 2 boxes alone packed with non-existent addresses, all submitted by Acorn.
There's something wrong with the process to have this happen for a registration drive.
Since June, election officials in at least a dozen states have raised red flags over more than 10,000 voter registration forms filed by Acorn. For example, in one Ohio county, Acorn registered the same person 17 times. And earlier this week, law enforcement agents raided Acorn's office in Las Vegas, carting away files and computers.
It was purely politically motivated. The right wing, and specifically the Republicans.
Bertha Lewis is the chief organizer for Acorn. She claims only a tiny fraction of their new registrations have problems. Problems critics charge related to the pressure Acorn reportedly puts on its workers to up their numbers at any cost.
Do you have quotas that people have to fill every day?
We pay people by the hour. And also, we train folks on a daily basis.
But CBS News has talked to nearly 24 Acorn workers who all said they were pressured to increase the number of registration cards, to the point of copying names out of phone books, signing up inmates, and registering the dead.
To maintain 25 cards a day. That's a quota, as far as I'm concerned.
Whether simple error or outright fraud, the charges surrounding Acorn are already raising doubts about the integrity of the upcoming election in key parts of the country. Armin Katayan, CBS News, New York.
Coming up next, getting positive results from negative ads. No doubt about it, the presidential campaign is turning negative out on the trail, and right here on the television, we're seeing more and more attack ads because they can be very effective, but not always. Senior political correspondent Jeff Greenfield looks at negative ads, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Read my lips. No.
Then he gave us the second biggest tax increase in American history.
The best negative ads are those that use a candidate's words accurately against him, as with this Clinton campaign ad from 1992.
You don't have to read his lips, read his record.
Or this famous weather vane ad from 1972, highlighting George McGovern's changes of mind. And in 2004, the Bush campaign used John Kerry's hobby to make their point.
John Kerry, whichever way the wind blows.
In his 12 years as governor.
So what makes a bad negative ad when it goes too far? Take this one from the Bush 92 campaign, which tried to present Bill Clinton's home state of Arkansas as something out of a Stephen King novel.
America can't take that risk.
And then there are those ads which are either distortions or flat out untrue, which candidates run even after fact checkers call them out. John McCain has done it.
Obama's one accomplishment? Legislation to teach comprehensive sex education to kindergartners.
That's untrue.
Senator Obama voted 94 times for higher taxes.
That's a distortion.
I'm Barack Obama.
And Barack Obama's ads?
John McCain refused to support loan guarantees for the auto industry.
That's a distortion.
John McCain's voted 3 times in favor of privatizing Social Security, cutting benefits in half.
That's untrue.
Hi, sexy.
But for this week's jaw dropper, here's an ad from a 2006 congressional race where the 3 a.m. phone call argument takes on a whole new meaning.
Who calls a fantasy hotline and then bills taxpayers? Michael Arcuri.
By the way, that candidate won. One more point, the really vile stuff isn't on TV at all. It's in pamphlets and emails. Jeff Greenfield, CBS News, New York.
Coming up next, the little football team that could in Steve Hartman's Assignment America. We end tonight with a football team that has no money, no bench, no future. And if the other team does, well, no problem. Here's Steve Hartman with Assignment America.
Shake hands as a sign of sports.
This was a Minnesota mismatch of epic proportions.
High end-over-end kick.
On the one side, you had Cathedral High School, big and strong and undefeated, taking on McLeod West. Small, scrappy, and no real stars, although they do see them quite regularly.
A little woozy there. He might have got his bell dung a little bit.
It's been a tough year all around for McLeod West. Their main school building has fallen into such disrepair, they've had to board it up and move classes out of the classrooms and into the basement, onto the stage. It's not a good situation. The high school will most likely close completely next year. Partly because of that, enrollment has dropped 40%, which brings us back to football.
Football's a game of numbers, and we don't have them.
Coach Bill Newbarth says when you take the whole school, subtract the girls, and the boys who don't play football, you're left with 19. And that's including Logan Miller and 2 other freshmen. So small, the water jugs can almost tackle them.
Whoa, Miller.
Their opponents all have twice, if not 3 times as many players. They all have stars and substitutes, which makes the rest of this story all the more unbelievable.
Logically, we can't win, but somehow we do it, and we just show them who's boss.
McLeod West actually won their first game.
Yeah, people thought we were going to lose every game, but we proved them wrong.
McLeod West actually won their first 4 games, including an upset of the number 2 team in the state.
We want to make this year, last year, the best year we've ever had.
Breaks in the open.
Unfortunately, 20. Cathedral had other ideas.
Touchdown, Cathedral!
It was still a Hollywood ending. It was just more like Last of the Mohicans.
Player injured on the field.
By halftime, McLeod West had lost 3 of their top 4 players and were down 21-0. There was no way they could come back to win. And yet those kids came out the second half like Patton's Army. And when they scored their one and only touchdown, you would have thought they'd saved the school. If only drive was dollars, that school wouldn't be closing. Steve Hartman, CBS News.
You did wonderful, and you know it.
Brownton, Minnesota.
And with that, we wrap up this edition of the CBS Evening News. Katie will be back on Monday. I'm Maggie Rodriguez in New York. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next week on The Early Show. Have a great weekend. Good night.
Again.